I gave myself 50 days to learn game development before I compete in the largest game jam in the world. How hard could learning game dev be in a short time? Turns out, pretty hard. In this video, we're going to talk about my first week in this challenge and how I went from this to this in about 5 days. During my first project, I wanted something super simple. No art, no complexity, just something to help me understand Unity's editor. So I thought, why not clone a game from a 30-year-old website from my childhood? Yeah, I feel old. I opened Unity and started coding a masterpiece. In my head. This video isn't frozen, that's just me immediately questioning all of my life choices. So I closed Unity, read the documentation for about 30 minutes, and opened the editor again. This time, I was ready. Deep breaths. I started simple, a square that moves. Thankfully, I remembered just enough from the last time I tried to learn game dev that I could at least Google the right stuff. I wrote a script that took input and applied force to a player's rigid body, the thing that makes objects able to be affected by physics. This was a super simple script, and I knew it was going to work perfectly. Except nothing moved. Why? Because I created a rigid body in the script, but never assigned one in the editor, meaning it didn't know what I was trying to apply the force to. Essentially, I was applying movement to nothing. This took me an embarrassingly long time to figure out, but once I did, it felt great, as it was the first time in many hours of following tutorials and courses in the past that I was steering the boat and solving problems on my own. Don't forget to celebrate the little victories. Now it was time to build the room. I just stacked some stretched out squares to make walls. Functional? Yes. Winning greatest art direction? Absolutely not. I added colliders, and now we had the game's levels. It was simple. It only took me about 30 minutes to drag a few boxes. Progress. Then came the enemies. Circles that move in straight lines. Touch one and you die. I thought it would be straightforward, until Unity said,
"Hold my beer."
Apparently Vector 3 doesn't like it when system.numerics is included by default in new scripts. I'm still not sure why. I guess I'll just add that to a list of things I'll Google later. Trying to rely mostly on documentation, this took like 20 minutes for me to figure out, and that was only because I asked ChatGPT. Once that was fixed, the game was done. I saved the file for the last time and hit play. Nailed it. After a bunch of trial and error, adjusting the limits of enemies' movements and then making a few adjustments in the editor, I saved the file for the last time again, and I hit play again. It actually worked this time. I felt like an evil scientist whose little minions were finally doing what I created them to do. It's probably one of the coolest things I've experienced. For my second game, I wanted something that actually felt like a game. So I thought, what's easier than a 2D platformer? Right. I used the Pixel Adventure asset pack from Unity, which is the same one I used in a tutorial I half finished a year ago. You can grab it for free on the asset store. I started by making a simple tile map, which sounds easy, until I realized simple actually means create a grid in the hierarchy, make a tile palette, double check your pixels per unit before you import anything, or it turns into an ant-sized chaos. Then you learn brushes, painting tools, and how to add tile map colliders. Yeah, I didn't realize it was that much either. I dropped my player character into the world and wanted to use Unity's new input system, but quickly realized that was way over my head. So I fell back to the classic one and started coding the movement. The scripting logic made reasonable sense. The rigid body, the thing that applies physics to a game object, needs force to change velocity. Velocity is defined as distance over time, so multiply a speed variable by an input direction, and done. Horizontal movement. I added jumping using Unity's built-in jump input, and voila! Add a controllable character, with infinite jumps, but we'll fix that later. Next up, animation. I created idle, run, and jump animations. I wanted to make a falling animation, but it required checking vertical velocity and setting triggers. This is also the reason we never actually fixed the infinite jump problem. Now it was time to add some danger. I learned how to tag my spikes, and wrote a simple collision check. If the player hits a collider, it checks to see if it is tagged with spike. If it is, they die. Super basic, but it worked. The same logic also helped with my floating platform. I animated the fan at the base of the platform to spin. When the player lands on it, it runs the same collision check but for a different tag. Then the platform stops its animation and falls. How does this magic happen? I set the platform's gravity scale to 0 by default, essentially turning off gravity, and then set it to 1 when triggered to turn the gravity back on. And finally, the pièce de résistance, my anti-gravity wall of doom. The player jumps onto a spinning fan, gets launched into the air, jumps over the wall, and dodges spinning saws of death. Honestly, you easily miss the saws, but this is still my favorite part. Why? Because it's the first time I built something completely from scratch. No Googling, no ChatGPT, no tutorials. I never left the editor. And somehow, it worked on the first try. That was actually the moment I realized I'm actually learning. Not just watching tutorials, not just copying code. This time, it's sticking. So what should you take from this video if you're getting into game dev? First, progress is greater than perfection. I had to remind myself constantly that janky is okay. Polished can come later. Just get it working. Second, momentum is magic. Everyone always says to just start. And while I always heard that and would go, yeah, easy for the super successful game developer or YouTuber to say, the minute I solved a bug or got something to work, even the tiniest thing, I wanted to keep going. The momentum started to pick up and had me constantly thinking about getting to the computer and cranking up that old game engine. The only way to get that momentum is to start. I also learned that I needed to spend a little more time upfront planning what I'm actually going to build. My make it up as I go style worked this time, but I definitely could have made more progress if I knew what my end goal looked like. These projects were just adding a feature here, fixing a bug there, and saying the project is finished when I'm ready to move on to the next thing. For next week, I'm shifting gears a bit. I want to explore mechanics like UI or dialogue or inventory systems, something that leans a little more into what makes games feel complete. I don't know what kind of game it'll be yet, or if it'll even be a full game at all, but I'm excited to find out. If you're learning game dev too, or just here to see if I completely melt down before the jam, hit subscribe and come back next week. I'll be here, still staring at a Unity editor, hopefully with fewer blank screens this time.